Bonjour les garçons. So like I said I was gonna do, I'm about to record a video that will help you complete the exercises page 180 from page 180 to page 188. Let's just start with the first double page 180 181. So on this page there is nothing in particular. On this page, all you have to do is review the irregular verbs on page 178. Why? Because most of the verbs of these exercises are irregular. Okay, you will find only a handful of ER verbs. Most verbs are the irregular IR, the irregular IE, or IRE kind of verbs. So once you have done this, once you have learned, reviewed the verb in 178, this should be very easy. Every time you have a doubt, just take a look at the page again and write your sentence. Now, on page 182, we have the passé composé avec être. This is not something new, this is something that you know already, but it is a French classic where students always make the mistake when using le passé composé avec être. What should you keep in mind when using le passé composé avec être? Well, it's very simple. You should simply keep in mind that le passé composé avec être will only be required for what we called les verbes de mouvement. Verbe de mouvement. By verbe de mouvement, I'm not talking about all the verbs where a movement is induced, like dancing or running. I'm talking about a typical kind of movement. To be a bit more precise, I would refer to it as motion. So whenever there is motion, think about things like arriver. You think about entrer. You think about monter. You think about venir. And you will also think about their opposites, les contraires. Donc arriver, partir. Entrer, sortir. Monter, descendre. Venir, aller. And this gives you a total of 8. You have 6 extra ones. They are retourner, to return, passer, to pass, to go through, tomber, to fall, naître, mourir, to be born, and its opposite, to die. And the last one, rester, to stay. I'm going to write it here. So once you have all these verbs, guys, you have your 14 verbs. All these verbs are going to require you to use être in the passé composé. Let's have a quick example. I'm going to take venir and partir. So these two, we're going to remove the IR. Venir is going to be venu. Partir is going to be parti. And our verb is going to be like this. Je suis venu. Tu es parti. Nothing difficult so far. The difficulty will be what we call l'accord or agreement. When using passé composé with être, we must do the accord or agreement, which means that our subject is going to influence the past participle. So what does this mean? This simply means that if je, in this case, is masculine, okay? If we have a boy talking, this does not affect the past participle. But let's assume that in this case we have a girl speaking. Okay? We will need to add an E at the end. The same applies for tu. If I'm talking about a boy, there is no change. If I'm talking about a girl, I will need to add an E at the end. This is what we mean when we talk about accord. And this only works for passé composé with être. Let's continue with the accord. What do you think is going to happen if we use plural? Nous sommes, excusez-moi. Nous sommes, right? Vous êtes, il et elle sont. Let's pick different ones. Né, born, tomber, fall, partir, again, and aller. Again, in this case, we are talking about boys, right? Do you think the past participle is going to be affected? Yes, it will, because in this case, it is boys, yes, matter of fact, but we are talking about many people, so we need to add an S. Nous sommes nés. Vous êtes tombé. The same applies here. Many people, right? So boy or girl doesn't matter. We will add the S. But let's pretend that in this case, we're talking about a girl. About girls. Well, guess what? We do need to add our E, and we also need to add our S. Ils sont partis, only boys. What's happening here? Obviously, I'm going to add an S. Elles sont parties, I'm talking about girls. I'm going to add an E, and an S, just like that. So I hope that this was clear. This is what le passé composé avec être is all about. You always have to assume that this right here, the subject, is going to affect this over there, the past participle, okay? You need to have an E for girls, you need to have an S for plural, you need to have ES for ladies. If you understood that, I suggest you practice with exercise on page 184 and page 185. On page 186, we still deal with passé composé avec être. But this time, we will take a look at our reflexive verbs are changed. Let me take a verb, simple reflexive verb. Se lever, to wake up, right? Se lever. So as you know, when you conjugate the reflexive verb, se has to be changed. I'm going to show you an example in the present tense. Je me lève, okay? So far nothing difficult. Now let's assume that I want to use this in the past tense. Yesterday I woke up. In this case, I will have to use être. Because passé composé with être is for verb de mouvement, like we saw earlier, but also reflexive verbs, or in French, we call them verb pronominaux. Okay? Whenever you have these verbs, like aller, partir, sortir, or se lever, se laver, se regarder, se blah blah blah, you need to use être. So it is the same. You just write your subject, in this case, je me, then you write your verb, être, and you just add your past participle. Let's not forget the accent. This is it. Because we use être, if we talk about a boy, like earlier, this will not affect our past participle. But if I am talking about a girl, well, guess what? There is an E at the end. If I am talking about more than one person, nous, nous. Same rule, nous sommes. Levé. So the nous is going to affect the subject, right? I mean the past participle. Why? Because nous is more than one. So more than one, we need to add an S. And if nous, they are all girls, we also need to add an E. So exactly like the movement verbs, our subject here is going to affect our past participle here. Okay, now there is, I would like to be careful about one thing. If you look at page 186, you will see a second section called être ou avoir, because sometimes you need to use avoir with these verbs. Don't worry about it. I will explain this. I will explain this in class because it's kind of difficult. I don't want you to not to really understand it. So I will explain this in class. What I would suggest you do right now is try to complete exercise of page 187, 188, and 189. Do not forget that this is due on October 22nd. Merci, messieurs. Au revoir.